Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So I'm very happy to welcome Shelby Means to Got Grass Podcast. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
I always start out with a non-music question, which for you would be, if your bass was in the shop and you had a day off, what would your perfect day off be?
Oh, okay. Good question. I'd start with coffee. I probably search on so I'm not at home, right? I'm on tour for this situation, or am I?
You can be home. Let's say you're home and your bass is broken.
So I can't play it. Perfect day. My husband's here with me and I get to sleep in and he makes me coffee in the morning. And then we take our dog for a walk on the beach and probably wander down to Tico Feo for lunch. My perfect day, of course, revolves around food. So we'll probably grab some tacos and then come back. Might splash around in the ocean or pick up a guitar. I know I can't play the bass, but I would pick up a guitar and just try to settle in, visit friends, maybe do a little songwriting or creative flow, and that's being with the people, with the people I love, and hanging out outside.
How far are you from the water?
Just two blocks. It's very close.
Oh, that's nice. Nice spot. Yeah. So I was going to talk a little bit about your history. A lot of the players I interview on this podcast in bluegrass grew up touring with family bands and stuff, starting when they were 5, 6, 7. A lot of them told me they didn't really choose bluegrass; it kind of chose them. They just it was kind of the lifestyle that they had, and they just fell into it and never left. What was your path to bluegrass like? Was it like that, or was it totally different?
It was around me from a very young age. Even as a child in utero, I heard bluegrass. I was born in Kentucky, so it's in my blood, if you know what I mean. My dad plays the banjo and the guitar, so I grew up hearing those sounds, and he would host jam sessions at our house and go to the local bagel shop that had a jam session, I think every Wednesday or something. So I just grew up with it. And I started on fiddle when I was 5. And then I competed in the Wyoming State Fiddle Contest in the Pee Wee division, and I won 2nd place. But somehow I just was getting frustrated that I wasn't getting good enough fast enough. I had very high expectations for myself on that instrument. So I grew a little bit, started singing more, and picked up the guitar. And then I eventually picked up the bass when I was 14. And the bass really felt like home to me. It was easier to quickly be able to jam along on the bass than I had found with fiddle or guitar. But having the solid background of learning guitar chords and things like that helped me on bass. When I was at a jam session, I could kind of look at the guitar player's hands and figure out what the chords were going to be if I hadn't heard the song before. So I grew up with bluegrass, and then I went to college in Laramie, Wyoming, and all throughout college, I studied voice and music a little bit. And then I eventually moved to Nashville in the winter of 2010. And I just wanted to surround myself with bluegrass music and with people that were better than me so that I could get better, just like by hanging around them. So that really launched, I had the solid foundation of bluegrass, and then it just kind of launched into a career when I moved to Nashville.
I'm amazed at fiddle players who started out when they were young. I mean, to me, the fiddle is almost like an impossible instrument to play. It just seems
Whew.
there's too many things going on. One hand would be enough. Either hand by itself would be enough to learn, but together, it boggles me. So how'd you develop your sound and style on the bass? Were you influenced by certain bass players around you, or in bluegrass history? Did you listen to like Missy Raines or people like that, or how did you
Yeah.
develop your style?
Well, I started out being 100% inspired by Erin Youngberg, who plays in FY5. She was in the band Hit or Miss when growing up in. So eventually I moved to Wyoming and with my family when I was 4. And then she was living, I think, in Wyoming, also going to college. And I saw her playing the bass at um, an old time contest in Douglas, and that was like, oh, I have to do that now. Um, so she gave me my first bass lesson and just showed me about different how to hold my hands, how to like dampen the string, how to pluck the note and then dampen the strings. Um, and then I was really listening to Ricky Skaggs and Kentucky Thunder a lot at the time, and I heard Mark Fain playing the bass, and he was doing some really fast walking, and that was like a huge goal of mine to be able to do like double time walking on the bass. So he was a big influence. Barry Bales, because I loved Alison Krauss and Union Station, and I just love how Barry would get from note to note, and his tone. And I got a homespun music video that Mark Schatz was the instructor on. So he really influenced my technique, left hand and right hand technique, and helped me practice the right hand a lot. And let's see. Uh, oh, and Jean LeBay also gave me some bass lessons when I was still in high school, and he played in the Nashville Bluegrass Band. So lots of great influences
Say so. Wow.
growing up.
Um, so eventually you ended up in a great band called Della. I don't know if you were one of the co-founders of the band, but that was a tremendous band for a long period of time. How did that
Mm.
all start, that band?
Yeah, I'm not a co-founder. I was the second bass player, and it's really just I do love bluegrass because of the community aspect and how it is such a close knit sort of thing. So when I eventually moved to Nashville, I was playing with some different bands, more like folk rock style, and then I was growing tired of that life. It wasn't paying very well, and it was just not great living a living situation on the road. But I think I went to IBMA and reconnected with my friend Courtney Hartman, who was playing in Delamay at that time. And we just had a great time catching up and jamming a little bit. And then she went back to Boston. And at that time, I think Amanda, their bass player, was planning to leave the band. So they knew they were going to be needing a bass player. And I think Courtney called me and introduced me to, a few months later, introduced me to the other girls in Delamay, and we had a Skype interview, and then I went up to Boston and did some playing with them, and it worked out. So I joined that band, and we got to make a record with Brian Sutton as the producer. We recorded This World Oft Can Be in at the Cash Cabin Studio in Tennessee, and that was just truly a life-changing experience. Getting to work with Brian Sutton was huge because he's done so much studio work, and he really knew how to get the best out of each song that we were going for. And he came up and did some pre-production with us in Boston to help shape the songs. And then in the studio, he was awesome and also very good at navigating like a band of women. Um, Not that we are much different than a band of men would be, but we did tend to have emotions and feelings about the music and the performance and everything. And he was just like a calm, really, really great presence to be around during that time.
I can imagine. You mentioned an all female band. There have been a few before you, and there are more now.
Hmm.
Was that a specific kind of thing like you that you wanted to be, or it just worked out that way that you were all five women in the band, or was that a goal to be like we're going to show these boys how to play kind of thing?
Well, Kimber actually is the Kimber. Gosh, you're making me scratch back in my foggy memory to remember the origins of Della Mae. I think Kimber and Avril were co-founders, um, and and at first I think Tony Watt even played in the band. So it wasn't, but I think the intention was to have an all-female band from the start. So it was just like a little bit of a growth period, and I think of course always they wanted the music to be really good, but um, I don't know, it's the three-part harmony with all women and just the fact that there were a group of women in the Boston area that could play at a high level um, seemed like a good idea. I think it was smart of Kimber to come up with such a band like that.
Definitely. Talking about singing, um, I know when there are men and women in the band, sometimes it's challenging for men finding parts under women's voices. I always found it challenging, more challenging than kind of stacking above a voice. Do women have similar issues all singing together, three parts, or is it easier or harder, or is it just the same as men? Or is that a stupid
I
question?
do think no, I don't think that's a stupid question because I think three-part harmony singing is a challenge, and I think it's one of the coolest things that we do in bluegrass music. Um, but it definitely takes time and rehearsals to work out parts. I think no matter the stack, whether it's all females or a one female and two men voices, or just however you're trading it, you want to experiment and try out different stacks. Sometimes there's going to be the lead part and then two parts above it if it's a lower voice singing the lead. Or if it just like rings really good with those high parts coming out, or sometimes it'll be the traditional lead part in the middle and high part above, low part below. That'd be the tenor is the high and the baritone is the one under the lead. Um, or sometimes you can have the lead and then two parts below. So it really depends like who's singing lead, voice where that voice range is sitting, and then where the harmony singers' voices can blend with the lead. I think it's just a challenge, but one that's worth working on because once you get those chords ringing, it just sounds so good.
I play guitar and I teach some bluegrass courses at a local music school, and I never paid much attention to bluegrass harmony before. I mean, I listened to it, but now having to go through songs with people and figure out these
Hmm.
parts, it is very interesting and challenging, fascinating,
Hmm.
like how
Yeah.
certain things work and certain intervals don't. And I mean, I grew up listening to the Beatles, so and their harmonies are sometimes simple, like Everly Brothers, and sometimes
Mm.
different and up and down, and how parts weave in and out. I find it almost more interesting to me than soloing now because it's so cool when it works well. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
magic when it works well. It just works. I don't know. I guess there's always a
Yeah.
reason why it works, but it seems magic sometimes.
Well, and you mentioned siblings, so I think there's something to that. Just if you're growing up in the same household, the same part of the country, your diction and the way you pronounce words is going to come out the same, which will help make the notes ring and make them really settle in together. So that's another aspect is like how is the lead singer pronouncing um, their vowels, and can the harmony people kind of match that to really blend? And it's easier if you're siblings or if you've grown up singing a lot together, but it's definitely doable with a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. New England voices and Kentucky voices are often pronounce and phrase things very differently. And
Definitely.
the phrasing is also not just the pronunciation, but the phrasing of a singer. I mean, you really have to study and get it right, because if you're not phrasing
Hmm.
together, as you know, it sounds like somebody's missing the boat, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, if one person's scooping up to a note and the other person is like just hitting it straight on, but
Hmm.
then there's a third person in there that can really change the way. It's interesting to pick out the parts and just
Mm.
figure out exactly what's going on. And sometimes it's cool, like there are some harmony singers that sing like they're singing lead. Um, and sometimes that's cool. It's more of a duet feeling, I think,
Hmm.
um, where there's two like really strong singers that somehow their voices are blending and they sound cool together, but they're maybe not saying the words at the same time. But I think in that scenario, a duet is a little bit easier. You have a little more freedom with what notes to choose and how you pronounce the words. And it just sounds like two people singing, but there is something special about the tight three-part bluegrass harmony also.
I think of Tim O'Brien and Daryl Scott are two of my
Mm,
favorite, about two guys who just like very strong singers, and when they sing together, they could be singing totally different phrasing and stuff, but it works. It really
yeah,
works.
yeah,
It's
I love
beautiful.
their singing together. So good.
So, do you think that Della Mae at that time kind of fulfilled all your goals as musicians, and you decided to move on, or was there another reason why you left, or just people just kind of want to do their own thing eventually and move
Mm.
on?
Yeah, Della Mae was an amazing kind of ride for me. We did so much in the time that I was in the band, which was, I think, like 2012 to 2015, so about 3 years. And we were tearing up the road, playing about 200 shows a year, which doesn't leave any time for anything else. Um, and we also got to do some State Department touring, so we were going overseas a lot and bringing musical diplomacy to third world countries, just trying to build bridges, which I really enjoyed and found very fulfilling, but also totally exhausting. And then like making the Grammy nominated record, that was getting to go to the Grammys. Like it was a very fulfilling time for me, and going to all the bluegrass festivals was a blast. But I do think that we kind of grew apart in vision. It's really hard to keep a band together and united under a single vision, and it turned out not to be the right fit for me after a certain amount of time. So um, I left, and also during Delamay, I met my future husband. Um, and when I left Delamay, we formed a band together called Sally and George. And so then I was able to write more songs and just explore a little bit outside of the bluegrass genre with Joel. And that was another great learning experience. Although transitions are can be challenging no matter what, it was I really do value the time that I spent in Delamay and the all the different countries I got to see and the friendships that I have with those women.
Yeah. It's funny because as a bluegrass fan or any kind of music fan, you don't really think about your favorite musicians' personal lives. Like they have relationships and things. It's not just playing bluegrass for you all the time. And, they forget that people, meet people and get married and move. They're just people that have lives, and they happen to play music as their job. But people
Yeah,
kind of forget, I think, that things influence bands and so forth, especially with a young
definitely.
female band. Obviously things are going to probably change for certain members as they get into their
Hmm.
20s, and life
Right,
happens.
right.
Life
Yeah,
happens. Yeah.
life happens, and um, the tour life is a challenging life to allow much personal time in there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
especially when you're really doing like 200 shows a year, that was
A
full
lot.
on.
That's a lot. Yeah. So you ended up playing a pretty good gig with Molly Tuttle, whom you're playing with
Yeah.
now still. And how did that happen? Did you approach Molly? Was she looking for you, or how did you guys end up together in the band?
Yeah, it was decently organic. In 2016, I was hanging out in Nashville. Molly and I lived not far from each other. We could walk to each other's houses in East Nashville, and we became friends. I think our mutual friend Wes Corbett introduced us, and he was playing in Molly's band at the time, and she needed a bass player also, and so I went out and did a few gigs with her. We played Strawberry Music Festival and some other gigs in the Northwest, um, and just became friends. And after those little tours, we stayed in touch. We'd go on bike rides. We'd do yoga together, and so I had a relationship with her, and was still doing my own thing. And right as the pandemic hit in 2020, and everything shifted for all of us in the music industry. Um, my husband Joel and I were actually down in the Virgin Islands, and we were just stuck on an island down there, and it was a great place to be during COVID, but also slightly terrifying because there were like only 3 ventilators on the island. So if anything bad happened, it was a bad place to be. But so we were just sitting there wringing our hands, thinking like, what in the heck are we gonna do? So we finally came back to Nashville and decided, since everything was closed down and we couldn't even get together and play music with our friends, that it was time to make the move and move to Charleston to be closer to Joel's family and for him to be closer to the ocean. He's a surfer, so it didn't bother me to have to be close to the beach because I love hanging out on the beach. But so that shift happened for me, and I think it was towards the end of 2021, and we were still just starting to get back on our feet when Molly called me up and told me about the bluegrass record that she created, and was saying that she had this vision for creating a bluegrass band, and she wanted me to be in it, and she knew that she had Dominic Leslie, he was going to be on it in it as well, and she was still trying to figure out the rest of the parts. So that was the beginning, and of course I was really excited and happy to have a job and to be playing with Molly because I just really respect her and her drive and her musical prowess. Um, and then we really all clicked as a band. It was cool because I'd known Kyle Tuttle. Everyone in the band went to Berklee College of Music, except for me. But I did spend a lot of time up in Boston around the same time that the other band members were up there because of Della May. So I was in the area, and they were going to college, and I was going to the school of life, I guess you could say. um, so that was the beginning of Golden Highway. When Molly called me, she didn't even have the name figured out yet. So it was very exciting to be a part of that whole creation.
Is there anything about touring with Molly and that band that kind of surprised you that you weren't prepared for, or were just surprised at?
Hmm. Uh, that's
I
a
mean,
good
maybe,
question.
yeah.
Well, we've really experienced a lot of growth in that. In the last 3 years. We started out with um, a Sprinter van and one crew member that was uh, doing the front of house, and also he was like booking the hotel rooms and driving, and he was the tour manager also. So we went from one crew and five band to this year we have five crew members, five band members, and a tour bus and a trailer. So that I gotta say, it was hard work. So it wasn't a total surprise, but I think it was just really exciting to see such growth in a project.
Yeah. Bronwyn, Keith Hynes, who's obviously in your band, she played here quite a few times with Mile 12, and she was even on my podcast a couple of times.
Nice.
Yeah, she's great. And she put out a really great album not too long ago.
Mhm.
Was her album an inspiration for you to do that, or were you already working on yours and planning to go off and do your own thing with your stuff?
It was definitely, yeah, Bronwyn was a huge inspiration for me because she'd had her solo fiddle album,
Mhm.
and then she was scheming, I really want to I want to do an album where I sing. So she was thinking about that, and that got me thinking, like, I should do a solo album too. And my husband made a solo record before me, about 2 years before I did, and he enlisted his friend and our friend and sometimes bandmate Maya DeVitri to be his producer. And she had produced her own albums before, but never someone else's music. But I just got to experience her producing Joel and how beautiful that was. And I thought, with Maya as my producer, I think we could really do this. I think we could really make a cool Shelby solo album. So Bronwyn and Joel definitely inspiring to me. Also Kyle and Molly. Um, everybody's everybody's making their solo records and getting their songwriting out into the atmosphere.
How did you happen to choose that song, the Lady Gaga song, as your, I guess, first release and album title? Obviously, it means something to you, the song.
Yeah. Um, well, it's a self-titled album, so I couldn't actually choose a title. I just was like, oh,
Oh,
Shelby
okay.
Means that's good enough. But um, I'd been going through all the songs that I had, original songs, and a lot of them have, take place. The setting is out in Wyoming. Um, there's some Western and cowgirl type themes going throughout, and I've been performing Million Reasons by Lady Gaga live with Sally and George for many years. Um, and it was always really fun for me to perform that song because I would put the bass down and just take the microphone and um, just act like a pop diva. Stand up on the drum kit if I had one or whatever. Just exploring and exploring the performance space more. And I think I was a little nervous to record it, but we made a demo and sent that to Maya, and she said, "Oh yeah, this is gonna work. This is gonna fit." So it was, just trying to fill out the album and add a few more covers, and with Maya's encouragement and Joel, that one made it onto the record. I really
Oh,
like the way it was reimagined. I don't know if you've heard the original Lady Gaga
I listened
version.
to it. I listened to it. I heard a couple or one of your songs on Sirius Radio recently, and had, oh, I didn't even know you were doing an album. And then I heard that song, so I listened to the original version of it too, just to see. Um,
Cool.
it's funny they still call them albums, isn't it? I guess we still get.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been to so many things since then, but I guess it's nice to have the tradition of calling them albums. What about being lead singer, band leader, bass player? I was talking to Missy Raines about this, and she said, "Boy, singing
Mm.
lead is so hard when you're playing bass because the bass is doing one thing, trumping along in rhythm, and the song is going all over the place." And she said that is the hardest thing for her was trying to sing and play at the
Mm.
same time. and have them both
Yes.
be independent, but yet still keeping all the things where they belong.
Yeah, there's a lot of like compartmentalization that has to happen for me when I'm singing and playing. And oh, thankfully, the bluegrass rhythms are just so ingrained in me that it's a little bit like in the back of my mind, autopilot almost, um, whereas the rhythm goes. And I also deeply rely on like my mandolin and guitar players, um, knowing that like we're going to be solid together if I'm focusing a little bit more on the vocals. It's I think singing is because you don't have a fretboard on your vocal cords, it is kind of similar to playing a non-fretted instrument like the bass, because you intonation is really important. So, but the more you practice apart and then bring them together, I think the easier it gets. But doing a lot of harmony singing and playing bass for me has helped me kind of be able to sing lead, which is slightly more freeing than harmony because with harmony you're like you really have to be locked in and you can't mess around with the notes or anything. So with lead, I do think it's hard to fully have bring it's a challenge to bring the emotion and the feeling to your vocals and freedom to the vocals while at the same time holding it down on the bass rhythmically. So that's the challenge for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Missy just played here with her band. She has a great young band. I'm sure you know a lot of the players, Ben Garnett and Tristan Scroggins and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, when she plays and sings, she jumps all over the place with that. She's jumping back and forth and playing.
Mm.
She's not at all a standing still bass player. She's
Uh-huh.
moving that thing around and shaking
Yeah.
and singing at the same time.
Hmm.
Do you like singing lead? Do you like to sing lead?
I do. Yeah, I
You
do.
like to sing lead, yeah. But you still
Uh-huh.
want to play bass. You're going to always stay bass and lead, you think, or
Well,
might you?
it's interesting. I'm not sure. I wouldn't fully commit to that. I'm having to work on my guitar chops a little bit because I'm doing a few more solo performances
Hmm.
and to just be able to like come to a radio station and present my songs very stripped down with just my voice and guitar. Um, I'm working on that. So everything I feel like album is really going to be good for me because it's going to keep me moving forward and um, just getting better. Hopefully, that's my hope. Get better at the guitar, get more solid, get more freedom in my vocals. But I love playing the bass, and that's what I'm really good at. Um, I I think in all the bluegrass instruments, like that's the one I'm the most confident on, and that was why I felt like I could assemble such an all-star cast of musicians that I got to play bass in that band. That was so cool. Getting to have Sam Bush on the mandolin and my brother on the mandolin and oh man, all the amazing fiddle players I have on the record and Brian Sutton, of course, with my past history of playing, uh, working with Brian as he produced Della. I knew I would feel comfortable with him in the studio, and where I might have been a little more intimidated by Sam Bush or Jerry, it was like, okay, Brian's he's not gonna make fun of me or anything
Right.
like that.
You have a connection there and you're familiar,
Yeah,
which is nice.
but
So is your album out yet officially, or it's not, right?
not officially. It comes out May 30th,
May 30th.
and I have my next single comes out on Friday, May 9th.
Ah, okay. I was wondering how that all works.
Yeah. So I've released four singles. Well, I will release four singles by the time the album comes out. The
Hmm.
first two were more DIY, just kind of Streets of Boulder featuring Molly Tuttle and Kyle Tuttle, which has gratefully been getting some play on SiriusXM, and Million Reasons was the cover. So I wanted to give people a little taste like of what they could expect. Um, uh, Really driving fast tempo, high lonesome bluegrass tune with the Golden Highway sound of like harmony vocals on there, and then a more like ballady type um, pop cover, which
Right.
there's a tradition of pop covers in bluegrass music, so that was
Yeah,
kind
of
of
course. Yeah.
yeah.
I was talking to Ronnie Simpkins, bass player from Seldom Seen, and Tony Rice, and I asked him, I said, when you're playing bass and you're trying to find that groove, who do you key off of? And he said, oh, I always key off the rhythm guitar player,
Mm.
which kind of surprised me. Well, I guess playing with Tony and Wyatt Rice probably would be a
Heck
good
yeah.
duo to kind of like key off of. But do you find yourself
Yeah.
trying to key off a particular musician in the band to keep that kind of pocket thing going, or does it depend on the song and the circumstance?
Well, with Golden Highway, for me, um, I'm really tuning into the vocals,
Hmm.
um, because it's about the song. It's about where Molly's feeling it, and her voice is gonna know that. So we tune in. I tune into her vocals, and um, but Dom and I have a really good relationship, I think, and um, we're always kind of like having eye contact with each other. Or sometimes if things get weird, you're playing in a huge space, and the rhythm just feels like it's rolling all around. There's slap back going on, and if it's hard to hear, you can kind of tune in on someone's hand or fingers and just really try and settle in. But yeah, it's in bluegrass, everyone needs to be listening for the groove and trying to lock in. It only works if everyone's trying to lock in. Um, I mean, it's hard to pick one instrument that I'm locking in on, because if I were to just lock in on the guitar, um, it might not feel how the band, like where the banjo and the mandolin are sitting, it might not feel right. So I think bass players have the job of listening to all the instruments and then trying to give that note in the middle of them all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being in the back, usually in the back as a bass player, I guess it's a little different than being, up front, because, more of the sound is going out rather than,
Mm.
you know what I mean? I
Yeah, I
guess, I
think
guess you have to pick up your cues where you can, right?
the ideal for the musicians is to be like in a semicircle or in a circle where we can all
Right.
look at each other and have eye contact and like notice what's going on, because you never know. I mean, somebody might want to pick it up and like start playing a little faster, and like you need to be there with them. It's there's I've learned that you can't really fight. It sounds bad when you start to fight the groove if somebody wants to like speed up for a solo, but you can kind of like be there with them and support the movement, but um, not allow it to go too fast. And then like
Right. Yeah.
potentially it could settle back down for when the verse comes back in. So, but with in Golden Highway, Molly had us all, she wanted us all to be in a line up in the front. So that was cool. I didn't have to stand in the back as the bass
Yeah.
player.
Yeah. I remember hearing Ringo Starr talk about touring with the Beatles in the crazy days, where he said, I could hear absolutely nothing on the drums. I couldn't hear a thing they
Oh,
were playing because everything was in front of him. The amps, everything was in front of him. He said, I just had to
hmm.
watch their heads moving, and I got the beat. That's the only way. I said, I couldn't tell. It was so loud. I couldn't hear anything at all.
Oh man.
It was
Wow,
crazy.
that's wild. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't imagine that. And
No,
I mean, I guess that because they had a drummer who was just looking at their heads, it's interesting because you would normally think that the drummer would be the one kind of setting the tempo for everything and holding it there. But maybe that's, I don't know, the Beatles were different, maybe.
I mean, when you look at their sound setup, I mean, they each played through one amp when they started out, but the amps were lined up in front of the drum set, which was up on a riser, and then you just see the shaggy heads, and that's all. I just it's crazy. It was a crazy
Yeah.
time. So do you
Yeah.
teach bass lessons? Do you teach bass?
I have, yeah. I don't have
Yeah.
any students currently, but I do enjoy teaching the bass.
Yeah.
I
So
think
when you
because
have,
it's so it's so approachable. It's nice to get people hooked on an instrument that
hmm
you can easily join a jam with.
yeah, yeah, bass players always welcome everywhere, I find.
Yes.
Do you have a couple of basic things that you try to teach learning bass players in bluegrass, like a couple of like hard, fast, early rules that you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I take it from Mark Schatz, but he had the three T's: tone, timing, and taste. Um, Metronome is our friend, and
hmm
I like to set it either double time or try and make it go on the off beats so that
Yeah.
if you're trying to play along with that for timing, the more work you do with a metronome, the better you'll be able to um, like play with other people. I think it's important for all the instruments to practice with a metronome, but if the bass player knows roughly, if you have that internal tempo, if that internal click going, I think it's easier when you join other people to hold steady and not drag or rush. You want to be hitting right there, maybe a little bit in front of the beat for bluegrass. That's how I like it. But
Right.
and uh, well, I do think that technique is really important also because the bass is such a physical instrument that if you um, start off with your wrist all kinked in a funny way, or you're kind of just clamping and pulling down really hard, your hands might not want to do it for a long time. So, getting some proper technique, good posture, and with your shoulders down and back, I think that's important too. That helps. But yeah, I usually just start with the open strings and feeling the fingers pull one string down, and when you touch the next string and then you pull that string down, and you can just do these little exercises with a metronome to
Yeah.
get the right hand going.
Yeah. I remember I talked to Dan Tominski on this podcast a while ago. We were talking about Tony Rice, and he said,
Mm,
Tony Rice had a very light touch on his right
mm,
hand. Everyone thinks he played so hard and those aggressive leads, but he said he was playing so quietly most of the time that when
mm,
he had to play a little louder, it would easily come out. But most of the time, he was just his hand was so relaxed and light. And I think
mm.
people have this misconception that you have to play hard and loud in bluegrass to make it driving. And I think that's
Yeah.
the downfall of a lot of people's playing is they're just always playing too hard and fast, and it's just there's no dynamic, it's just too
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed and just observed about Molly's playing is when she's singing, like she's playing really quiet, but then
Mhm.
if there's a space between lyrics, she'll come in with a powerful strum. And that is so cool to me. Just those dynamics, like, oh, backing down for the vocals, it makes a lot of sense. And then when you want to hit it and dig in a little bit in between the vocals, come forward like that.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's what makes her in my opinion, the best guitar player in bluegrass because there are a lot of hot players. We know that. And but
Yeah.
Molly has that dynamic and that touch that just very few have.
Hmm.
I think Brian Sutton has it too.
Yeah.
He can play quietly and, move in and out as the song demands. But I always
Mm.
love that about Molly Tuttle. I think Courtney was kind of that way too. She had a lot of subtlety to
Mm.
her playing. Um,
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I
yeah.
love playing with Courtney.
This is gonna tax your brain maybe, but if you could have sat down and
Mm.
played a few tunes with anybody in music history, who would that be? If you could have said,
Mm.
like who would be your? I know it's a tough one.
Well, I've always been a little bit just what do I say? I think like Billie Holiday would be really cool to play with her. Um, let's see, who else? I mean, Bill Monroe, um, just to be able to play bass with the father of bluegrass would be really cool. I would have loved to play with Tony Rice also.
Yeah.
Um,
I like the Billie
hmm,
Holiday idea because I can imagine you and Billie Holiday just doing a duet, bass and vocals, because she could,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even need other instruments. It would just be,
Right. That would be
that
so
would be real
cool.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. If you were doing a music podcast, who would you interview? Who do you want to interview first if you were doing a music podcast like I'm doing, either in bluegrass, but
Uh-huh.
just in music in general? Is anybody particularly you'd love to sit down and chat with for an hour that you've never done?
Mm.
I'm looking
There
for
are so
ideas.
many people. Yeah, my husband actually wants us to do a podcast, so this is a really good question.
Mm,
Um, hmm. Well, I'd really love to sit down and talk to Cheryl Crow.
mm,
Um, she plays bass, and I think that is so cool. And she plays many other instruments. And as a songwriter, I just love to have the opportunity to chat with her.
mm-hmm.
So many other people too. I actually at IBMA I got to sit down and we were getting our hair and makeup done and did my okay, no, I think it's fine. Um getting our hair and makeup done and Missy Raines was in the room and I kind of took the opportunity to talk to her about her experiences playing bass and just she is an idol to me as a female bass player. She's been flying with her bass for a long time before they even had like the Chadwick folding basses. And someone told me that she would wheel her bass through the airport and all that. That's just so inspiring that she, um, yeah, wanted to keep playing the bass even though it was so challenging to get it around. So yeah, I'd love to talk with her more. Any other female players, I'd probably want to talk to them on my podcast because we don't often get to hang out with each other very much because a lot of the times there's just one bass player in the band or in the jam even, and it's special for us to connect, I think. I think.
Yeah. When I had her on the podcast because she's played here quite a few times over the years. She still drives around in a van with her husband towing a trailer, and they manhandle all the stuff in and out. I mean, it's just I don't know how she does it. Honestly, it amazes me. But
Yeah.
um, she was saying when she started out playing bass with bluegrass bands, and after the show, she would go to the promoter and say, "I want to get paid for our gig," and he would say, "Oh no, I'm going to pay somebody in the band." And they would say, "No, I'm in the band or I'm leading the band." She was a woman. She said she got a lot of that back in the old days.
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
promoters just wouldn't accept that a woman would be in the band,
In charge.
in
In
charge
the
in the
band
band.
or in charge, yeah,
Well,
collecting the money
both,
at the end of the
both,
night.
both of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I mean, we got to give her props and all the other women that came before us that kind of paved the way and helped open doors for bands like Della and Molly Tuttle to just have have space in the industry.
Yeah, yeah. People forget. I think that women in bluegrass, aside from a few maybe bassists and girlfriends were not really a big
Mhm.
deal back in the day. I mean, it's pretty unusual. Now, of course, there are a lot of great women playing, leading bands in bluegrass and playing. It's kind of normal, but
Yeah,
that's pretty
and
recent.
I do think the stories that we hear from the old days, I understand why women didn't want to go out there and be in those conditions and work with some of the artists. You know, it probably wasn't easy, and there was I don't know. It's I feel that the environment is more conducive to allowing, not allowing, but uh, just women being involved is um, probably safer for one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the men back there, especially when they were drinking, probably thought the women were just theirs for the taking, kind of like, you're in my band. I know Bill Monroe and his famous thing with Bessie
Mm,
Lee. Who knows what happened there? But I mean, I'm sure some
yeah.
crazy stuff while he was married,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
went on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. So looking back at your musical life now, not that you're that
Mhm.
old, but you've been through a lot. Anything you would have done differently growing up or learning wise? Had you to do it over again, or were you pretty happy with the way everything just turned out?
I I don't. love to think about what I would do differently in the past, more just like looking forward, what have I learned and how do I want to use those things going forward, you
Yeah.
know? But I definitely I I think I'm still learning important lessons on um, managing band dynamics
Mm.
and like controlling my own emotions and having an outlet for stress on the road. I think is just really important and something that we're hearing a little bit more people talk about with like backline and resources that are available for touring musicians or crew members that are struggling on the road with mental health and stuff like that. But for me, just being making it a priority to walk every day to get some exercise. I'll try and hit the gym and do some weightlifting if I'm on the road, and that's really important for relieving stress and not taking things out on your bandmate or yourself or anything like that.
I'd imagine that traveling even if you're on a nice bus with four other people or more all the time gets a little I don't know what the word is, but it can get a little tough.
Yeah, there's just not room for personal space. Like if you need everybody needs a little bit of time alone, I think. And so getting out and going for a walk or having some other sort of hobby. I've taken up reading a lot recently, so just trying to also get out of my phone a little bit and onto the
Right.
back onto the paper is really nice. But yeah, it's good to have little outlets to help with touring.
Yeah. Will you be touring with your band when this album comes out, or are you too busy with
I
Molly
will,
to?
yeah.
You will. Oh,
Yeah, I have some dates. They're up on my website, shelbymeans.com, and I'm adding more dates as the time goes on and booking into May 2026 already. So
really?
I'm really excited about this, and I can't wait for I made the record, and now it's like that part felt like monumental and like a huge thing that I was doing. And now it feels like that all over again when I'm scheming and putting my band together and booking shows and getting ready to take the music out on the road. Really
Coming
exciting.
up to this area at all, New England at all, or is it mostly down Kentucky, South Carolina area where you could be touring, Tennessee?
I will definitely be coming up to New England. I love it up there. I'm hoping to get up there for some leaf peeping, which is one of my favorite
Mhm.
things about being able to book shows when I want, where I want. Can go check out the beautiful foliage.
Yeah, it is nice up here in the fall. Um, so, are there any questions that I should have asked you that you would like to answer, or did we cover? We're
Let's
winding down
see.
towards an hour here, and I want to give you a
Cool.
chance to say something if I didn't cover it or ask you about it, anything important. Or
Um,
I know your album coming out is important, and you're touring with your band is important, and
yep, the album comes out May 30th. It's love if people could or would like to pre-save the new single and the album on Spotify. That helps a lot. And um well, there's 13 songs on the record, 11 originals and two covers. Um so I've been doing a lot of songwriting and that's really awesome to have an avenue for that. And I'm looking forward to bringing my music out and out to the people. It's gonna be exciting to. I'm not stepping out from behind the bass totally, but I am stepping up to the microphone to do some more lead singing and leading the band.
yeah, that's certainly a bit of a stretch from playing bass and occasional singing to be the front person. I mean,
Yes.
your band, your tour.
Uh-huh. I'll be
Yeah.
behind the driver's seat, so that's exciting and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sorry, my dog Casper was just saying, "Hey,
Oh, hey,
what's
Casper.
going on? Hey, Casper."
Have you picked your band yet, or is it too early to kind of, or is it going to vary depending on who's available also?
Yeah, it'll vary depending on who's available, but definitely going to have my brother, Jacob Means, playing mandolin as much as possible. Joel Timmons will be playing guitar as much as possible. And I have some shows coming up in June that I'm going to do as a trio that Maya DeVitri will be playing fiddle on. So we'll be kind of the
Nice.
trio that you hear on a lot of my album. The harmony trio will be performing with me.
She's great. Maya's great.
Yeah,
I've heard her. Yeah, she's
is.
very talented.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to hearing your album in full, and maybe someday see you up here with some band touring in New England.
Yes, we might need to take a nap on your floor again.
We have blankets and grass, so you're welcome to do that anytime.
Thank you
so thanks
so much
again
for having me on.
I'm dying to get Molly on my podcast. I've been talking to her publicist a lot, but she's just busy, and everybody wants to talk to her, I know, and so I'm going to keep trying.
Keep trying, yeah.
If you see Molly, tell her that I was asking about her. I don't even know her, but I know Bronwyn pretty well, but I'd love to have Molly just for a chat sometime. It'll work out eventually. It'll
I'm sure.
Anyway, well, thanks again, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And good luck with your album, and hope you make a lot of money and sell a lot of records. And
thank you.
Good for you. All right.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right, you too.
Bye. Bye. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.